are, so we will start our regular meeting with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton.
Here.
Commissioner Barwick.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Steflin.
Here.
Mayor Absher.
Here, would you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to item number 3, which is our public comments section, or audience to visitors. We've got John Wallace from the Shawnee Park and Climate Alliance, I hope I got that right, here to speak. I was not here last meeting, but I understand we had some folks speak in favor of keeping the Shawnee National Forest a forest. I think Mr. Wallace wants to speak on the opposite side of that issue, I think, as far as advocating for a national park. So commonly during the public comments section, we usually limit visitors to about 5 minutes unless extended, but my understanding is that the other party spoke for longer, so we'll try to give you a little bit more time to get through your presentation, and seeing if there's not anybody else to speak, we'll just let it be your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate this opportunity. As I was joking earlier, I have tried to bribe your members. I'm actually not trying to do that with the quarter. I wanted to point out that Garden of the Gods was featured on the 2018 Illinois Quarter. And the most recent national park that we have in this country was the New River Gorge. It was established in December of 2020. And that is our 63rd national park. And it's a park and preserve, which is what we're asking for with the Shawnee. When they featured the New River Gorge on their quarter, and shortly thereafter it became a national park. So I think a little bit of a precedent has been established. So I wanted to share those quarters with you. I wish to ask the city of Marion to consider adopting a resolution in support of the proposed Shawnee National Park and Climate Preserve. At your last council meeting, Mr. Justin Lawrence spoke in opposition to this proposal and mischaracterized a number of things and frankly provided information to the council that was false. And I think it's important that I bring up that fact, and I think it's important that we also give you something to think about as far as consideration for the support for the Shawnee National Park and Climate Preserve proposal. One of the things that Mr. Lawrence mentioned was the fact that we are anarchists, and I really stress the fact that I encourage anyone to try to find an anarchist that is trying to push through federal legislation. I think that's kind of is contrary to what actual anarchists do. We are not anarchists. We are members of the public. I've lived amongst the Shawnee National Forest for about 35 years here in different parts of Southern Illinois. I currently live outside of the town of Simpson and own land that adjoins the National Forest. I use it regularly. I'm a hunter, a bird watcher, a angler, boater. There's many. I use the forest for many different purposes, and I think Mr. Lawrence inappropriately made some assumptions. And I left each of you. I believe there are 4 different documents that I meant to do that, to counter some of Mr. Lawrence's insinuations that the National Park Service would restrict, would limit hunting, would restrict horseback riding, mountain biking. I believe he even said that we were responsible for opposing the proposed Marion Lake back in, I think it was the 80s, which is I think those opponents are well established that we're out front on that issue. Southern Illinois needs help. You know, Marion does pretty well. Probably of all the communities, Marion has thrived the most, or at least sustained. I retired from the city of Carbondale, and Carbondale has just been suffering for ages. And it's not just Carbondale, it's the entire Southern Illinois region. Ever since coal mining left this area, a lot of industries have left. You know, pretty much SIU has dwindled in population to almost half of what it used to be in its heyday. We have some important features in Southern Illinois. We have Southern Illinois University. We have Marion. We used to have the Miners baseball team, but I understand we're getting a new team, and something about hillbillies. It's the name, is supposedly the name of the team, and that's great. You know, there are a number of features in Southern Illinois that we have that are notable. We have a number of prisons that employ people, but we have something in Southern Illinois that we don't have anywhere else in the state or in the region, and it's the Shawnee National Forest. We have 5 different physiographic regions that come together in a very small area in between the 2 rivers, which make this area so unique and so it's unlike any other place in the country. There are other places with that many different regions, natural divisions coming together, but not in such a small area as the Shawnee has. And it deserves better recognition. It deserves more attention. And more people are coming to the Shawnee, but the U.S. Forest Service has done a fair job. They do what their mission tells them to do, and part of their mission involves productivity. And one of the products that they produce is timber off the forest. I don't think that can be justified anymore. Timber extraction on the Shawnee has never broke even or made a profit. And I don't think a government entity is supposed to make a profit, but if we're depleting our resources, we should at least be able to break even. And now what we know about climate change and the role that mature forests play, it's clear that our public lands are more important now than ever as far as sequestering carbon. And what's so amazing about it is they do it for free, and they're the most efficient that we have on land. Forests are. And the best example of mature forests are the Shawnee Forest. And as a result, we have proposed to create the Shawnee National Park and Climate Preserve. And the organization that I'm with, the Shawnee Park and Climate Alliance, our president is Les Winkler, the outdoor writer. Unfortunately, he's on vacation this week. I believe he was supposed to roll in sometime this evening. But because Mr. Lawrence spoke, I really wanted to give you some more information to consider and think about what we can do to help this region economically as well as environmentally. I think Marion has the most to gain out of all communities in the region, just by your general location on Interstate 57, close to I-24, and really not that far from I-64. The Shawnee is within a day's drive from millions of Americans. You know, we have these incredible national parks all around the country, but we don't have many of them in the Midwest. We have a national park in Missouri, we have one in Kentucky, we have one in Indiana, but we don't have one in Illinois. We deserve one, and there's no better example than the Shawnee National Forest. And with national park designation comes an increase in jobs. There's a study that was done by the University of Houston. I can provide you all this information. Please let me know if you want more information about it. But when a national park is designated, 3 to 4% of the employment goes up in a region surrounding the park, and 4 to 6% of wages go up as well. So it is literally a win-win, and it's a kind of economic development that sustains itself. Resource extraction is boom and bust. History shows us over and over again. We take out resources, the economy grows, but then collapses. And that's pretty much what's happened with our coal industry. Now we have this opportunity like we've never had before. While climate change is a crisis that is bearing down on humanity and the region, the world in general, it can actually be an opportunity for us. So what we're proposing is to take the Shawnee and create the Shawnee National Park and climate preserve. So part of the new designation would be a national park portion, like Garden of the Gods, Bellsmith Springs, LaRue Pine Hills, Little Grand Canyon. Some of those areas that are popular recreation areas already. Those areas already have restrictions on them with hunting, camping, horseback riding, different uses. So they're already restricted. And those would be our proposal for the park, with the great majority of the Shawnee becoming a preserve, a national preserve. National preserves allow for more flexibility for the traditional uses like hunting, like equestrian use, mushroom hunting, mountain biking. Mr. Lawrence pointed out repeatedly that we were going to suffer if those uses that bring in people to the region. There's no question. We do not wish to restrict that use of the forest in any way. We want to encourage more people to come here. The problem is the USDA Forest Service is not geared toward recreation. The mission statement for the National Park Service really clearly distinguishes the fact that the mission is to preserve unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. So recreation is part of their job. The Forest Service has nothing about recreation in their mission. It is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands. You know, those are big differences. The Park Service can handle it. I have presented you one of the things that Mr. Lawrence is the president of the Heartland Trail Riders Association, and they sponsor the 9-day trail ride in Polk County. It's actually the county I live in. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's the end of July, the 1st of August. It's a very popular event. It brings in people from around the country. There's no intention to stop that. That would be foolish. You know, it's almost like trying to restrict hunting. That would be foolish. We don't want to restrict these uses. I'm a hunter. I've ridden horses in the Shawnee. It's a wonderful recreation. I've got a mountain bike. You know, Mr. Lawrence claimed that we wouldn't be able to do these things that we've currently come to appreciate in the Shawnee, and it's just not factual. So what I did is I provided you some different samples. One was a cross-country trail rides that are week-long cross-country trail rides in the Ozark National Scenic Riverways, which is just over in south central Missouri on the Current and Jacks Fork rivers. Notice this is one outfitter that does this. They have 5 different rides every year, and they range in 300 to 2,200 riders. You know, that's much bigger than the 9-day trail ride. And there's 5 of them. And the Park Service manages that area and facilitates that. So that's just not true. Another thing that he points out, that trail, you know, trails will be closed and we'll lose access. I've given you a map of the Mammoth Cave National Park. Please forgive I had to tape it together, use my copy machine. But I want you to look at the different trails. There's mountain biking trails, there's horseback riding trails, there's hiking trails, and all over the Mammoth Cave National Park. I also would like to point out that there are a number of different myths out there about when it becomes a national park, we're going to have to pay to use the Shawnee. And that is not necessarily the case, but what I first want to point out is the USDA Forest Service has a plan in place to start charging user fees at Garden of the Gods, Bellsmith Springs, Cedar Lake, Johnson Creek, Recreation Area, Little Grand Canyon. I might be missing one or two of those, but they already have this in place. During COVID, though, they shelved it. Now, they're not planning to abandon that plan. It's going to happen because I guess during COVID, the agency in Milwaukee lost some of their staff that would do that. It's a recreation staff, and once that office gets proper staffing, they plan to bring that up again. So there's a plan already in place to start charging user fees on the Shawnee. Now, the most heavily used national park in the country is the Great Smoky Mountains. There is no entrance fee in that. There's 423 different national park units around the country. 109 charge entry fees. That's a quarter of our national parks that actually charge entry fees. Think about how the Shawnee is laid out. It wouldn't lend itself to charging entry fees. The other myth that is very common, I gave you a Mythbusters document as well that addresses a lot of these myths. And I encourage you to not trust what I say. Please look at these. If you're serious about this, and like I said, I think this will help Marion. I think it will help our entire region. I'm an environmentalist. I don't hide that fact. I want to be clear. I'm not an anarchist, but I am an environmentalist. But it's plain as can be that any new legislation that protects the environment, that hinders our economy, isn't going to go anywhere. That's just all there is to it. It's the same way with, if we were to propose restricting hunting, there will be hunting restrictions on this new proposal, just like there is in the Shawnee now. Again, you can't hunt on the Garden of God's recreation area. You can't hunt at Little Grand Canyon. There's places with those restrictions already in place. Will there be some changes? Of course there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some changes if the Forest Service keeps it as well. That's just, with time comes change. You can count on that. But we want, and the Park Service is better than any other agency at managing recreation and promoting recreation. Just go to Barnes & Noble bookstore in Carbondale. They have an entire section on national parks. The Rand McNally maps have a special fold-out section on every national park. We could be featured in the Rand McNally map for Illinois, the Shawnee National Park and Climate Preserve. And it gives us so many different possibilities. Mountain biking, there's mountain biking trails throughout the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve, as well as the Mammoth Cave, that map that I provided you. Mammoth Cave was actually recognized by the Mountain Biking Association as the third in the nation for having mountain biking trails. You don't hear anything about that. The other mountain biking trail, a mountain bike trail is being developed in the Shawnee. At this point, it really isn't geared toward that. And rock climbing. We have Jackson Falls as a site of national significance for rock climbing. And people here don't realize it. For too long, we've not realized what we have that make us unique. And the Shawnee makes us unique more than any other component. So with that, I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those questions. Please check these different websites. I have many other documents if you would like any information of anything I spoke about.
I have a question,
Yes, sir.
because I was just thinking about it. Would you be willing to, at some point, I mean, you came and spoke tonight, they spoke last time. I would love to hear this together in almost a debate format. Not at a meeting like this, but would that be productive? That discussion, because you'd have point and counterpoint going on.
I was gonna ask the question in a different way, but it's, I think, getting at the same thing, and I didn't have benefit of the other discussion that you guys had. That being said, this has been percolating for a while. All of a sudden, last 6 months or so, it seems to be kind of a hot topic. To me, there's nuances with different angles that people have talked about, but I think the vast majority of what I've heard, pro and con, is this whole thing, I'm not gonna be able to hunt, not gonna be able to fish, I'm not gonna be able to ride my horses. That's where it kind of all gets boiled around. And frankly, I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, of it, but both sides seem pretty compelling and they're pretty compassionate, or, at least emphatic that they're right. My question is there any, you mentioned a study, but I think if it's the study that I've seen, maybe it's just generically talking about the economic impact of a national park designation versus some other designation. Has this specific proposal been studied by somebody that's independent, that, again, doesn't have a dog in the fight or whatever? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
How would that come about, or is that possible? Is it?
Well, here's what often happens with national park designation is the first step is getting Congress to tell the Park Service to do a study. And they can come out and say yes, yay or nay. They have
So the Park Service is the decision maker, not Congress?
Congress designates the Park Service to go do a study. They give they give a recommendation one way or another. They'll spend, I'm not sure how long, but they do it in a number of different in different areas, and then they give an opinion, and Congress can then say, okay, we want to propose legislation, or you know what, let's forget it. We don't want this. We think it's a bad idea. So that is probably the best and most reliable approach to looking at economics as well as those other issues. They might say, well, people want me to make a promise that we're not going to change things, nothing's going to change. I can't do it. Nobody can. But the Park Service may come do a study and say, this is what we propose. And maybe they would say something that actually would allow hunting on more land than the Forest Service allows, or some new equestrian trails here where you don't have them, that kind of thing. I don't know. But that's what, that is an option for you. I know that, I think it's going to be difficult to pick an entity that doesn't have a dog in the fight, if that makes sense. Somebody's gonna have to get some funding to do this study. More than likely, it's gonna be somebody that has an interest in it. But it certainly is, yes, the proposal or the study that I mentioned is Houston University, and it is, and there's all kinds of studies that the Park Service has done. The National Park Conservation Association, which is it's like a friends group. We have like state parks that have friends groups that raise money and support the agency in their cause. That's, those things are tied to the Park Service. But the University of Houston study, they looked at a number of different And that's where they came up with that 3 to 4% and 4 to 6% increase in wages and jobs and that sort of thing. I do have copies of that. If you would like that, I'd happily provide those to you. And they're also available online, and I think maybe referenced in the Mythbusters document. But I am also happy to do a debate. I have seen, in many times I've seen bad behavior.
Well, that notwithstanding, I mean, to John's point, I guess it would be entertaining if nothing else.
One thing that comes to mind, and why I think a debate would be good, when the other group was here, they mentioned that, in reference to hunting on the land, they did mention that there were 51 million acres managed by the National Park Service is open for hunting, represents 60% of the managed land that they have.
Right.
But they said what they don't tell you, that the majority of that land is in Alaska. So if you take, the 60% that's allowed to be hunted on, but it's in an isolated area in Alaska, that's a large land mass. So it would be good to hear your response. And I'm just going off memory of what they said. I'm not, this is the first I've seen any of this. So that would be a good question in a debate. You're proposing here that, this looks good, 60% of the land is still used to hunt, but is most of that in Alaska?
Well,
I know you can't hunt in, around the Great Smoky Mountains, most of those places, that I'm aware of, where I've been, around Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, I mean, there's signs, no hunting, no trespassing everywhere. So, would this be designated similar to that?
that is the reason, the motivation behind the preserve idea was based on that. Because that's what happened at New River Gorge, when that was designated. 90% of New River Gorge is a national preserve, and 10% is a national park. We could make the Shawnee a preserve, a complete preserve, but people don't go out of their way to go to national preserves. They go out of their way to go to national parks. National parks is kind of the crown jewel of the park services. They manage national rivers, national seashores, preserves, cemeteries, battlefields. I mean, there's just a plethora of different types of recreation areas. But people don't go out of their way for those type of designations. But if it's got national park in it, they do. And what I think we have done for too long is underestimate the uniqueness of the Shawnee and the fact that we have the Trail of Tears. The Cherokee Trail of Tears goes right through the Shawnee. We've got a place that's very close to my home that's part of the Underground Railroad. Miller Grove was a pre-Civil War free African American community. And there's a cave there, nearby, it's probably a half mile, that was very difficult of access. And so they used that cave as part of the Underground Railroad stopover spot, just once they got across the Ohio River. So we've got some of those cultural aspects. We have these stone forts. There's 11 stone forts that are built on these bluff tops. Nobody else has this like the Shawnee has. There's one of the stone forts, the Stone Fort Trail at Giant City State Park, is a good example of that. But the indigenous people built these walls to isolate these. Usually they're three-sided bluffs. So there's one side that they built the wall on, they thought it for a while to be spiritual in nature, but in fact now they believe that they were defensive, that they actually defended the territory. So there's, in answer to the long answer to your question, it just is, I can see us doing the very same thing, and that's why they did it, so that hunting and trapping can continue at the New River Gorge. And we could do the same here, you know, on 90% of the land. We could do a similar thing here. I'm not saying that it's, I haven't done the math on how many, you know, what percentage, but there's no one saying, we're doing this so that we can close an area off. That is not our goal in any shape or form. And I think that if we're unified in this, that should be our goal, to try to keep as much areas open for recreation, for an agency that actually specializes in recreation instead of one that specializes in many different components. That's one of the things with management of the National Forest. The USDA Forest Service has so many pots that they have to distribute their money in, and it, as a result, a lot of that money gets lost. The Park Service just has three. It's preservation, recreation, and education. And the education helps to highlight the region and the uniqueness of it. I think it is promising. So I hope that answers those concerns.
I would love to see.
Yeah, I would too.
I would love to see your group, the opposite group, the Forest Service, the Park Service, sit down together and have this discussion. And let the public, I mean, we've got a nice place right across the street that could be held at. And just have that debate, what are you gonna call it, just get facts out, back and forth, whatever, public can come, listen to it. I just think it'd be good to get the facts out.
I'm sure part of the
Absolutely.
process through this whole thing, whether it be the studies or whatever, has got to include public participation, public meetings. In other words, you can come to the meeting, you can look at the maps, what's proposed, you can ask your questions, write comments after it's all done. All of that is assembled and processed in the bigger picture through report or whatever it might be. So everybody feels like they have their say or their opinion when it comes to this. My thing is, as far as the management of it, let's say Golconda wants something and Jackson County wants something else. How is that put together as a package to say, okay, we're gonna allow hunting in Golconda, and I'm just picking a name in a town, but we aren't gonna do it here, and how does that whole program get put together to where the different communities can say, okay, we're good with that, or no, we aren't good with that. It's a long process, I understand, and this is not something that's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen next year. It's gonna have to be a long process, but my curiosity is like John's and some of these other, the two Johns. I would like to see and hear that discussion and have those questions asked from the general public. Because what we see here from the city of Marion and its management may be totally different from how another community 20 miles east or west or whatever would look at it and perceive it and go, that may work for you guys, but that's not gonna work for us. So that's what I would like to see, is some of that transfer of information. And I think that probably would happen during the information gathering process in the public meetings.
Yeah, like I had stated earlier, and I got a call, oddly enough, from another elected official, not in this body, who's prepared to weigh in on this, and I'm pretty sure you haven't spoken to them yet. I just cannot imagine. I don't feel educated enough to, I think you opened up with it, you wanted a resolution. I will tell you right now, I'm not signing on to any resolution. I don't know enough about it. But back to your suggestion of having a meeting or whatever, it would be helpful if there'd be somebody from the Park Service and the Forest Service there that could answer specific questions. Because what this is turning into is one group of people saying one thing, and then another group of people saying, no, it's not, or yes, it is, and I didn't hear the other side. You're very believable. I don't think you're standing up here lying. I imagine the other folks were very believable too. And as lay people in this world, I don't know what we're supposed to believe. So I'm just really unsure. I will say this. I will agree with you absolute principle on this, and I hope you can agree with this, whatever we call it, it's going to remain there. It's been there well before us and will be there well after we're there. It's an and I agree with you, it is an enormous, I've considered it where coal at one point was our region's best natural resource, so to speak. I think it's our new best natural resource, both from an economic and environmental standpoint. What my goal is I think all of these towns, you mentioned Marion and its proximity, but the same holds true with Harrisburg, the same holds true with really all the towns up and down and north and south of this 13 corridor. We potentially are the new Gatlinburg as the entrance to all of this properly marketed. So my interest from my seat is just to see that whatever it is that it's not hidden from people, which I think it has been. I don't think as a region we've done a very good job. But my point is Camel Rock still gonna be Camel Rock, whether that's inside of a National Park Service sign or if it's a Forest Service sign? And I know it's far more important and nuanced than just that, but my point is that natural resource is there. And as a region, we need to do a much better job of marketing it so that more people can visit it. But in terms of weighing in on one thing or the other, I just don't feel, and again, I'm not, from me to you, I'm telling you, it's not that you're not believable, you are believable, so probably was the other side of it. How do you know what to think at this point?
One concern I had too from the other remarks was saying that the national parks is more inclined for eminent domain or adjacent properties or properties that are encompassed. I didn't know if that would be true. I mean, more so than the Shawnee.
Thank you for bringing that up. I had to plan to address that. Eminent domain on public land as a rule doesn't happen anymore. Now, eminent domain did happen in a lot of, and I think that probably there's parts of the Shawnee that utilized eminent domain. You know, the Shawnee was founded in 1939. I know that a lot of land was taken because of delinquent taxes. The government paid the taxes, and that's how they ended up with a lot of the land. But not that eminent domain won't take place, because public land, we have to, the concept with public land is managed for the best use for the most people over the long run. What is the best use for the most people over the long run? And that, if that's met, sometimes governments will say, you know what, this highway is gonna serve us, you know, so we're gonna use eminent domain to get a wider highway, or to do, to put in utilities. You know, that is more common to use that anymore. For instance, like the most recent public land that was established in southern Illinois is the Cypress Creek National Wildlife Refuge, primarily in Johnson and Pulaski counties, you know, on the Cache River. And they were hit with that when that was first proposed. And so we're here to buy land, but we're not here to take land. And it's been a process that has taken some time. What's happened is government managing agencies are much better at, if they see a parcel that they want, and we're not proposing to enlarge the Shawnee, the 290,000 acres to 500,000 or anything like that. That's not part of this. We just want what is Forest Service to be managed by the Park Service. But the Forest Service has a purchase area boundary. When you look at the highway map, that green that goes all the way across, that isn't all National Forest land. And so they can buy and continue to buy land within that purchase area boundary. And I can see a similar thing happen with the Park Service, you know, and when willing sellers, then they get the land, they acquire the land that way. But eminent domain is just, there's too many negative connotations with government already. To just take people's land for recreational purposes is counterproductive. And, you know, it's why we have the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission, you know, they will actually go in and if someone doesn't want to, you know, to sell their land, you know, they can work out easements so that the land can be protected and the families can continue to hang on to it. There's stuff like that, instead of these mandates that are all voluntary. It's not something that is forced upon people, but it just isn't practiced very often anymore. So I'm not gonna speak for the Park Service, but a lot of land was acquired, especially in the eastern part, like I believe some of Mammoth Cave National Park was taken by eminent domain, but that was in the 30s. Things are significantly different than they were in the 1930s. It scares me how close we're getting to the 30s already. In 2020.
Well, I would encourage you to consider this public forum of some sort and see if you can pull some parties in together and get all the information out there, and maybe a wider berth than just going council by council or board by board.
I
I think that'd
absolutely,
be very, like I said, it'd be entertaining if nothing else to see and listen to that. But I appreciate you coming, but we're gonna need to move on to the rest of our business this evening.
thank you very much for your
All
time.
right, thank you. Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda, which consists of items A, B, and C, and sub-items. Anybody on the council want any of those items or sub-items removed from the consent agenda and voted upon separately? Anybody in the audience? Okay, hearing no request, we'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda, items A, B, and C as presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on any of these items or sub-items? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay, under new business, there's two parcels of property that came available. We discussed it in executive session. These are next to each other, and so they're related, even though they've got different street addresses on different streets, but they're actually adjacent to each other. Item 5A is my motion to approve the purchase of 1101 Midway Court, PIN 0624328001 from Jeremy Maloney.
I would second that.
Okay, any questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Item 5B, my motion to approve the purchase of 1317 West Concord, PIN 0624328003 from Christopher Pemberton.
I'd second that.
Okay, any discussion on this one? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stefan,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. All right, item 6. We budgeted for this one. This is some lighting upgrades. Cody, do you have anything to add on this, or?
No, it is, Jared had done a part of this last budget year, so this is kind of a follow-up and
Yeah.
addition of some additional lighting. What's there presently is fixed, and this has some more motion elements to it.
So this is the $36,312 or $36,612. I'm sorry. Is that right?
Yes.
Or do we add the 3245 to it?
That's what I was stuck on.
I think those are separate.
Yeah, I think there are two.
They're separate.
So we really need to approve both of these expenditures in tandem, right?
Yeah, so the electrical specialties is the, contract labor for the electrician to get power to
Okay.
I know at the chamber dinner and other things too, those lights are great, but the consensus was, we just need some more of them.
Yeah.
And this will do that. This will do
I
that.
just think the chicken looks funny. Does everybody else? I'm
It did.
serious.
Yeah.
Doesn't the
It
food
did.
look weird?
Oh, yeah.
Looks weird.
It did.
Will that fix this?
This will fix the chicken.
Yeah.
No?
Kind of green looking, wasn't it?
This
It
is
looked very strange.
I've never had blue chicken before, but it was good.
Okay. All right, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion on this one. Or do I need to make the motion? Okay, I would make a motion to approve these separate or together.
I think we better do them, I mean, it could be one motion, but the two different items and two
Okay.
different vendors.
Okay, then I would make a motion to accept the bid from electrical specialist for $3,245 for material and label to install the new wiring circuits from the existing panel to these tower locations, along with the bid from Midwest Music for $36,612 to install the new box truss and lighting systems for the pavilion.
Second that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Steckland,
Yeah,
Mayor Absher.
Yay.
do they give an indication when they thought this would, if we pass
I
it?
think they're in stock.
They're in stock, okay.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Item 7A is a proposal that I made to the school district about sharing in some anticipated property tax increment that they should receive as we extend our sewer down South Market. And that's what you've got in your packet here. They approved this at their March 21st meeting, I think it was last Tuesday. Yeah. So in essence, they're gonna participate up to $350,000 of additional incremental property tax. This is in lieu of placing any TIF or anything down that way. So I think we laid the explanation there out to that, but do you guys have any questions? Well, I'll make a motion first and then we'll have any questions. I'll make a move to approve an intergovernmental agreement with Marion Unit 2 School District for cost sharing on the South Market Sewer Extension.
Second.
Okay, so is there questions on this? I know this is a little bit unique. This is,
It is. I was just wanting to make sure my math was correct. Developer's gonna contribute $250, the county $300 from their ARPA funds. We're going to contribute $275 from our ARPA funds.
but it's actually, there's 293 something and change
Okay.
left, but
All right.
I've got this math.
And then-
somewhere on
From that, if we subtract the $350 from the tax revenue from the school, that leaves us with a balance of roughly $438.
Yes, we'll still have to allocate that probably from the project fund.
Okay,
But,
so the project fund, I didn't see,
It's right here, actually, 788,200 in this document.
okay,
Is what we've got, I think, underfunded. I'll have to add that math back up.
yeah. That was my only,
Yeah, no, we've still got some money to fund it. But in terms of this one, this agreement, this is the agreement with the school district sharing some of that incremental revenue with us to help us pay that.
I just wanna make sure we could get there.
I think it's a great intergovernmental thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been done before. I know it wasn't
No.
done when I was on the school board.
No.
When you were on.
It's, TIF has its pluses and minuses, but this was a situation that I thought probably benefited all parties,
Mm-hmm.
that we just work together instead of.
Yeah.
But that's what was proposed, and I think it was Cody's idea, actually, so I'll give him some credit.
Good job, Cody.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton,
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick,
Yay.
Commissioner Webb,
Yay.
Commissioner Stecklin,
Yay.
Mayor Absher.
Yay. Okay, item 8, commissioner reports. Doug, we'll start with you this time.
I don't really have anything other than we are trying to pull a budget together for next year. We're doing fairly well on that. I think we should have it fairly soon finalized. Our new software that we're getting for time cards, time sheets, lead time, all of that is, we're almost there as well. That's about really all I've got at this point, but we're getting there. Taking longer than I expected, but we're okay.
Okay, Mr. Barwick.
I don't have anything tonight.
Mr. Stecklin.
All right, since the last meeting, water department had 2 new service taps, 5 water main breaks, and 8 services were updated. Some upcoming events, 1 week from today, we've got on Monday, April the 3rd, we've got the walk around the clock. It's open to all, it starts at the Marion Senior Citizen Center at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., there'll be a health screening with grip strength test by the PT department from Heartland Regional Medical Center in Deaconess, Illinois. 9:30 will be a presentation by Dr. Mitchell Cook, podiatrist and foot and ankle surgeon. 9:45, the walk route for the inaugural walk around the clock will provide the opportunity to see many of the Marion murals along the way. And while walking, watch for the newest addition to the Marion Carnegie Library, the MCL book bike. You can register on this by calling Club 60 at the Marion Senior Citizens Center at 997-9019. It's open from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. The last day to RSVP for this event is Friday, March 31st, which is this Friday. And all participants will need to sign a waiver of liability. All right? I'm gonna do my trivia next because I wanna do that last, so, this one, we already did one of these, so this is a 2-part trivia, okay? There's a trivia and then there's a bonus, okay? So, true or false, Caesar salad originated in Italy?
Gotta be false.
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 It is false, yes. Now, the bonus question is, where did it develop? Get up, you can't be Googling this while you're
Glenn, when Caesar,
You were waiting for that.
There's 5,000 comedians out of work.
Glenn celebrated his 85th birthday this week. And, or not this week, but last week, or, what day was that? Friday, yeah. Okay, I couldn't resist, I'm sorry. So did you answer?
I haven't answered it yet, but I'm going to, unless you'd like to answer it, Glenn.
In the United States.
Which country is?
No, not in the United States.
France.
No, no, it originated in Tijuana, Mexico.
Wow.
Tijuana, Mexico. There you go.
That doesn't sound right.
Go home and tell everybody that tonight. So, my last thing is this. If you'll remember, my gosh, Terrence, how long was this when we had this little bright idea? 3
July.
years ago? Oh, to start doing this.
Oh, yeah.
3 years ago? Was it pre-COVID maybe even?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe so. When we talked about redoing the square, we thought it'd be a good idea to memorialize this thing somehow. So by putting this camera up, Terrence and Josh and Cody and some other folks that are a lot smarter than me decided we could mount this thing and time lapse this thing over the 3-year period. So Josh and Terrence got it all worked out, and we've got the final result over here. This is 3.5 years.
Wow.
It'll go well. Hopefully.
Can you turn it up, Cody?
Oh, come on.
I mean, the music just makes it.
One of you has a remote.
Oh, check that.
Jim's working on the remote.
So there you can see the destruction phase right there. I apologize if anybody's having seizures. Look away.
I like how the sundial is.
Yeah, get roll every day.
This is only 2 hours.
There you go. So kudos to Terrence and to Josh for putting that together. That's available. I think the link will be available on the website. It's a YouTube video. It's on the YouTube channel, so you can go look at that anytime. So
If only it actually went that fast.
that a lot of the traffic there is at actual speed. I've been told.
Gosh, Jim, you're gonna have a hard time beating
Yeah, I
that.
can't quite match that, but,
I don't want to see a time lapse at the cemetery.
of course, our main, project we've been working on is drainage across town with all the recent rains, so, things are going there. We're doing a lot of ditch cleaning, we got the leaf back and ditching machines trying to keep the water flowing, so appreciate everybody's patience and help on that. Along with the rain comes, potholes, so we've been doing a lot of patching of the roads as well, street sweeping, working on some sidewalks on South Vicksburg, Walnut Streets, some tile work on West Copeland. Spring cleanup, I don't wanna read through all this, but the week of April 17th will be the first section, southeast section, so be on our website, or there'll be some copies up here at City Hall if anybody wants to, know what the schedule is there, so. The only thing, the cemetery, they started mowing today, and nobody got stuck yet, so.
Boy.
So they're trying to mow the dry places, but, it's wet out there, but, that's all I got.
Okay, I think I forwarded this to all of you, but I wanted to read it into the public record. I got an email yesterday from Hillary at the Hub with two pieces of really good news. And on Saturday, they had a fundraiser for CASA, which is Court-Appointed Special Advocate Organization, which Cody's very familiar with. I know my wife is very familiar with it. They had a fundraiser there, and they had over 1,000 people in the facility on Saturday, swimming, bouncing. They sold over $7,300 in wristbands, admission that then was donated, plus $1,750 in sponsorship for a total of more than $9,000 raised for CASA. Hillary reports that the entire staff did a phenomenal job handling the influx of guests, and Cody, I think, took his family there and was very complimentary just of Hillary, of organizing all this. Secondly, she said that they added 215 new memberships from February 15th to March 15th, which is a new record for the Hub. The last time they'd sold anywhere near that was back in 2019, which doesn't take a genius to figure out was pre-pandemic. The reason I point out, of all facilities that had lots of fits and starts and closures and just the nature of that facility, had a particularly tough time figuring out how to navigate the pandemic. And frankly, some of the members that were there pre-pandemic didn't come back. And so this is very encouraging news that maybe we're past that and starting to add lots of members back. And so I give lots of kudos and congratulations to all the people that make the Hub so successful. So just wanted to report that. Anything else to come before the council in miscellaneous? I do not have a need for executive session unless one of you do. No? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. As a second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Patton?
Yay.
Commissioner Barwick?
Yay.
Commissioner Webb?
Yeah.
Commissioner Steckler?
Yay?
Mayor Absher.
Yeah, thank you all.